Victoria Ayerard. And our moderator, Natasha Polis. Susan is on the way here. She's caught a flight and she's rushing badly to get here. Well, we figured we'd start a little bit early.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay, so like Lenny said, Susan is running a little late, so she'll be here. But we're gonna have a fun little chat. You guys ready? Yeah. All right, so Holly Black, Victoria Ayerard, can you please tell us what your book or series is about that you're here to sign for?
Sure.
What happened? It was a phone.
Okay.
Your phone.
Okay. Yeah, I'll get it later.
Okay. I can do this. So, in fact, this will be easier for me because I have one book in this series. It is The Cruel Prince. It has come out in early January, and it is the story of Jude, who is one of 3 sisters. She grows up till she's about 7-ish in the human world, at which point, a guy comes to the door. He's kind of got greenish skin, weird teeth, looking for her mom. She gets her mom, and they have an argument, and in the course of that argument, it becomes clear that he believes that he is her mom's husband, and that he believes that her mother ran away with the oldest daughter, who is his heir. Dad comes in from the backyard. He's a sword maker. He's holding a sword. Not weird. What is weird is he's holding it like he's going to attack this guy. They have a fight. This guy kills Dad and kills Mom. So, yeah, 3 girls are there, and he's kind of looking at them like, oh, that was a bit hasty on my part. And so winds up taking not only the eldest daughter, but also Jude and her sister Taryn back to Fairyland, and they grow up kind of like reverse changelings. And that was the premise.
Yeah, it's a good premise, and it's a good book.
Why, thank you.
I'm gonna butter Holly up this whole panel because I really want the second one. Yeah, me too.
Me too.
Well, I'm done with it, so this is a good, I'm done. We're for once. I've never been this far ahead in my life.
Oh, we're done with book 2 already?
I'm done with book 2.
Oh my gosh, see, because I heard a rumor that your book wasn't coming out until December 2019.
That rumor is untrue.
Yes, I've now been corrected. It's coming out. I know, right? It's like almost 2 years.
No,
it's drained from my body.
No, it is done, and there'll be arcs in June.
Yay! Oh my gosh, in time for BookCon?
Yeah, all of you on the arc game? Well, yeah, absolutely.
When are there arcs for me?
I mean, there could be arcs for you anytime.
Okay, Victoria, do you want to talk about the next?
More Cruel Prince, yeah.
No. Talk about your own books, you know.
Hi, I'm Victoria Ayerard. I am the author of the Red Queen series. So that's Red Queen, Glass Sword, King's Cage, and the last book, which is coming out May 15th, Warstorm. It's kind of a mouthful.
My mailstorm?
Yeah, my roommate says it like Beyonce says surfboard. So she goes, Warstorm. Do it a couple times, you'll get it.
Okay.
And the premise of the Red Queen series is it's set in a world divided by the color of blood. There are normal red-blooded humans, and then there are people with silver blood who have superhuman powers, and they sort of form the nobility and the upper class of this world, and everyone else who does not have a superpower, does not have silver blood, is oppressed. And the story revolves around a red-blooded girl named Mare who discovers that she can control and create electricity. And this gets her into all sorts of trouble. And like in The Cruel Prince, there are some princes, and I would call both of them cruel.
Bad princes going around.
I see a theme here. Is there something about princes acting naughty that you guys like to write about?
We'll talk about that after hours.
Okay. All right, Holly, can you tell us what kind of research goes into your Fae mythology? Because there's a lot of it in there.
Yeah, I mean, I love reading folklore books, and I think as a writer, writers have a lot of weird interests, and go down, you know, strange rabbit holes. And in my experience, it is less like you do research for the thing you're writing and more like you do research and then someday it becomes useful to you, hopefully. And so for me, you know, I read folklore for a long time and continue to do it. You know, some of my favorites are W.Y. Evans Wentz's Fairy Faith in Celtic Countries, in which he went out and sort of talked to different people about their real experiences with fairies or their family stories about real experiences with fairies, and Dermot McManus's The Middle Kingdom. I think they're both.
How many books about fairies do you own?
Some. I've read
Some?
I know.
Is it like a bookshelf full, or is it like just a shelf?
I think it's a room.
It's a room?
It's like several shelves, maybe.
Several shelves?
A few shelves.
Is it like Bell's library?
I mean, I have a secret door to my library.
You do?
And you can have one too. I got it from a place called hiddendoors.com.
What?
Nothing you can't find on the internet.
Hashtag sponsored.
I really love the world building in Cruel Prince, not just because...
That's not the question you're answering.
No, she didn't ask me a question yet.
I thought it was research. I thought we were not research.
Yeah. Go on, Victoria. You can ask your own question.
I had a question because world building isn't just like drawing a map and naming places. It's like building the reality of that world. And something I found really striking about yours is sometimes we base our fantasy worlds off the reality of this world and it doesn't ring true because our rules don't translate. So something I loved about your fairies is that they had their morality. That was the thing that really struck me, is usually we're used to these magical creatures and humans playing by the rules of regular humans. Mm-hmm. And this was one of the first times where I really saw, no, they don't play by our rules. So I had not a difficult time, but it was really fun realizing like, this is a bad person, but I like their character and I get where they're coming from. But in the real world, this would be a villain. Like Maddox especially was someone who I really grappled with. And I wanted to know like where that came from.
I mean, fairies, like one of the things I really love about fairies is that they have a totally different moral system and that they might look like us, but they're not us, right? They don't work like us. And so they are, you know, for instance, they prize very highly hospitality. You know, they believe that, you know, generosity, hospitality, you know, if you do them a good turn, they'll pay you back 3 times in kind. They must. But they're often awful. Like if you make a bad bargain with them, they're like, sorry, like I guess you should have, you know, paid better attention. And like that to me is really interesting because it's those moments of coming up against, you know, realizing, oh, I thought that you were like me, but you're really not. You're really something other than me. There's, you know, when you look at other supernatural creatures, you know, you have your werewolves, your vampires, they were human. They have a connection to humanity. And, you know, fairies are one of the few creatures that are totally other than us. But I cannot believe that you were talking about world building when you draw maps.
Yes,
like actually have to create an entire system from the ground up. I get to cheat and use folklore and set it in the modern world. Like it is. I once tried to write high fantasy.
Yeah. Well, technically we all cheat.
I mean, how even the names alone and the layers of history that you have to create to have a world that is have a secondary world. I don't even know where you start.
Well, speaking of research and books and stuff, I have a little bag of 3 different books on World War I for a project after this next project, which is a fantasy second world, but a World War I.
Was that the map that you were working on?
That's a different map.
Oh,
There's
okay.
a totally different map.
Okay, because one of my questions is about maps.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Yeah, but in terms of research for worlds and that kind of thing, for Red Queen specifically, I spent a lot of time in the Wikipedia article about superpowers and just going through the list and figuring out what has been used in what ways and trying to figure out different ways to use things that were familiar, because for the most part, a lot of my characters, you can find touchstones of them in X-Men, in Harry Potter, in something, Pokemon a lot. There's a lot of flavors in these books. I was a big Pokemon kid growing up. So that's one of the reasons why the princess can control fire, because I was like, I always liked the fire Pokemon. So yeah. Someone once called Mare a whiny Pikachu, and they meant it as an insult, and I was like, you're damn right.
Yeah, once we said like Red Queen was like your kitchen sink of all your favorite things all in one. I love that description.
And I think that's what a lot of writing is you're first and foremost, you are writing for an audience, but the first person in your audience is yourself. So unless you're writing something that you would want to read, like you're not going to love it, and a reader's going to see that, and they're going to feel that, and they're going to feel a disconnect.
Okay, so to my question about maps. I know that maps play a big part in both your books, and I was wondering, how do you guys go about implementing those into the finished copies? Like, do you outsource someone, or does the publisher do it for you, or do you guys do it? Because I mean, I literally just saw Victoria doing this on Photoshop on her Instagram story. I'm like, what the heck? You have so many different talents, lady.
That talent came out of a lot of long, awkward years as a child. Actually, the reason I ever got into writing creatively when I was a kid, I was very young, and we had just gotten an N64. I was like 6 or 7, and my brother wouldn't let me play because he would play. He would let me read the guidebook for Legend of Zelda and help him. And he's older than him. Yeah. But he's way better. He was like a savant with video games. So the map of Hyrule really inspired me to start drawing my own maps, like with crayons. And from then it was, well, who lives in this world and what's going on with them? And that's the first time I started like thinking of my own stories creatively. So now it makes sense that for the most part, anything I write has, even when I did like contemporary screenplays, they would have some sort of map that would help me. It wasn't necessarily for an audience, but it helps you get that much deeper into the world and sort of internalize things to the point where you understand it and you can just write. And Red Queen wasn't as map intensive as the next project is going to be, but I still luckily was able to work on maps. And I remember when my publisher asked, like, do you have a map? Can we check it out? And I was like, oh my God, yes,
my time has come.
What kind of map do you want? Do you want topographical? Do you want geopolitical? I can do a blah, blah, blah. And the way that one ended up shaking out is we had a lot of back and forth where I would do rough maps, and we gave it over to an artist who translated it. And then for the most part, it became, I did like the lines and that kind of thing, and then they would do the filters and the mountains and that kind of stuff. So it was a really nice like 50-50. Yeah. I can see what I did and I can see what someone else did. It's really been a fun process. And I have no idea what's going to happen with this next one, if that's going to end up in there. But we didn't have the map in the Red Queen books until the third one.
Yeah.
And then that was really exciting.
Holly, how did you go about your map?
Imagine wanting a map that didn't actually do anything that maps do, because I am the opposite and don't understand how maps work or how distance works. And so the map in the beginning of Coral Prince is a map that is deliberately kind of like folkloric.
Yeah, it's like fantastical.
You can't really use it to calculate distance or anything. And that's, oh, I like it.
Did you just want it there because, like, you thought, you know, Hollis Hall was going to be down here and then the house was going to be up there? Is that what you wanted? And you kind of wanted to show, like, the human realm, too?
And I like a map that's, I do like a non-entirely representational map. Like, I think that they're really pretty and they're kind of cool. And I think that mood-wise, they tell you what to expect a certain kind of story, which I was lucky matched the kind of story that I was telling. Probably because there's a lot of, you know, I feel like there's a lot of things that I'm able to do that are numinous. So this was a numinous map.
I'm sure you had someone make the map, right?
Yes. Kathleen Jennings.
What were the
amazing.
Okay. What were the kind of things that you told her?
I said there's 3 aisles. Here are some places on those aisles.
You just do
and here are some things that, I mean, she'd actually read the book. Okay. She'd read the book. So yeah, she in fact was one of the great, she came to a meeting of my critique group and just drew little pictures. It was the greatest critique I've ever gotten.
Oh, wow.
I was like, look, little pictures. Nothing to change.
Will we see those little pictures?
That's always so
She
cool.
drew other pictures for this, but I mean, I should post her little pictures. Yeah. They're amazing. They're a little oak and some girls in dresses. And,
yeah. I love that. It's so cool seeing the interpretations other people have of your work, of something that's only existed in your head. So like when you get to Tumblr, After you've had a book out for a while and you type in the tag and you just are like, oh my god, this is so cool. And then you see some mean things and you're like, we'll scroll.
I'm really good at making my eyes unfocus. Like when I'm looking, I'm just like kind of blur my vision so I can only see, oh, art, okay.
Mine goes into laser focus and then it burns it into my brain and I'll never forget those words that were said.
So we have opposite.